my pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you for coming. As you know, that's my name. I am a member of the Colonel McGee Chapter in Hanscom Field, which is kind of far. So I don't get too many of the meetings, but they keep me abreast of stuff. And I'm going to start off by introducing you to my dad. Oh, that's not my dad. That's not my dad either.
Should I keep going, Dianne Marie?
I don't know, where did Dad go?
What flying?
Dad's not in there?
Well,
He's supposed to be the second one.
the second one tonight.
Number 2.
No, number.
Yeah, there he is. Isn't that a handsome man? My father was one of thousands of people who tried to make it through the Tuskegee Airmen experiment. Only 996 made it, and my dad was one of them, and I'm so proud of him. My dad was a bomber pilot, and one of the reasons why I'm here is because people don't know about the bomber pilot story. It's all about the Red Tails and the 332nd and the 99th Fighting 99. Which was cool. I mean, I really liked them. I knew a lot of these guys. My father used to tote me to a lot of the conventions, and I met some of these people, and I really didn't even know who they were because he wasn't a talker. But now in my old age, I have learned who I've known, and it just blows me away, totally. But I've got a couple questions of you. How many have heard of the Tuskegee Airmen? Yeah. How many have heard of the Red Tails? How many have heard of the Freeman Field Mutiny? That is going to be my focus, but I'm not going to leave out the Fighting 99th, you know. So, George Lucas actually produced a movie last year that took him 22 years to make. My father was negotiating with him in 1990 to make this movie, and it finally came out, and he had to invest his own money. So the name of it is The Red Tails. I don't know. Oh, no, you're going to see the logo now. Yeah.
Yep.
There's the red. Yep, that's the Red Tails. It was quite good, very Hollywood, you know, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of the things that go on in that movie did not go on in the Tuskegee Airmen. And there's also the next slide. Now this one is more or less true about what happened to the Tuskegee Airmen. The trials they went through, the heartache, and it's mainly about the 332nd and the Fighting 99th. But, oh, sorry. Is that me? Doing that? Yeah. So consequently, I'm very happy about those movies because they allow people to know about the Tuskegee Airmen, because you ain't going to find them in the history books. I had a job at one point where I had to go to schools. And I go to the history department and look through the kids' school books. they'd mention them, but they really would not tell you what they did, how important they were, their accolades. And I'm hoping that throughout the years that they don't drop the ball, because there's only about 100 of them left out of 996. That always gets me. Okay. Why was the experiment needed? In 1925, the War College put out a report on African Americans, which said they were a subspecies, they could not handle equipment, they were not to be trusted, they'd run away in times of wartime. It's hard for me to say that because that people would be so can I say the word stupid?
Stupid.
Yeah, it's amazing. 1925. So it was impossible for black people, and there were a lot of black guys and black women that wanted to learn how to fly. In fact, the first black pilot in the United States was a woman. I don't know if you've heard of Bessie Coleman. She was a hoot. She went to France and learned how to fly and got her license and came back here and taught people. Isn't that amazing? In 1939, because there were so many people, African American people, getting their licenses, they created what you call the Civil Pilot Training Program. Next one. There's my dad and his cronies. They all had their licenses. It isn't? No. My father's license is on that table over there. And his best friend Chuck, Red Finley, who I knew all my life. I didn't even know he was a pilot. And they all went down to Tuskegee together. And they did not wash out. The reason why the Air Corps created Tuskegee Airmen is because they wanted separate, not equal. They actually wanted it to fail. That's why they call it the experiment. I call it the experience. They chose Tuskegee, Alabama, because there was room for them to utilize the aircraft there, and also the weather was good. However, it was in the middle of one of the most prejudiced towns you ever can imagine. I mean, they never went off the base. They had a lot of problems there. And they had problems with some of the instructors, if you can believe that. But then, I think it's the next slide. Yeah, there's Bolton Field. Yeah, the next one, please. Oh, that's my dad's, it's my dad's class. And you can see his dad up there. If you were to watch the Tuskegee Airmen movie with Lawrence Fishburne, his picture is at the end of that. I was not prepared for that. It was amazing. But anyhow, next slide. Okay. Eleanor Roosevelt. A lot of people don't know how influential she was with the Tuskegee Airmen. She told her husband, she says, well, black men can't fly. What are they doing out in Alabama? So she went out to Alabama in 1941. And she looked up and she saw black men flying. And she said, I was told that black men can fly. So this is Chief Anderson. So she was talking to Chief Anderson, and so she said, well, will you take me for a ride? So, the Secret Service went nuts. Absolutely nuts. They instructed Chief Anderson to just do like 10 minutes. And when they got into the plane, Mrs. Roosevelt asked, will this plane go to Mobile? And Chief Anderson said, yeah. He said, let's go see Mobile. So they were gone for an hour. And they didn't know what to do. I mean, they didn't have cell phones and stuff. And, you know, what are they going to do? But this is what she looked like when she got back. She was so happy. And she went and she told her husband, black men can fly. That was amazing. Also, another ace in the hole that we had. Next slide. We got the two Davises. Have you heard of B.O. Davis, the commander? Yes, a few people. B.O. Davis on the right, he was the commander of the 332nd. He went to West Point 4 years. Nobody spoke to him. He didn't have a roommate. On Sundays, the trainees had to come in and ask where they could sit for a meal, and he had the degradation of never getting that seat. And he went through it. And that training that he got and that stalwart discipline, that's how come the 332nd made it. And I honor him. That's his father on the left. He was, I think he also went to West Point, but I don't know his story. Noel Parrish, he'll tell you, he would have told you himself that he was just a Southern cracker. No different from anybody else in the South. But he had a fair mind. And what he did is he graded them on their efforts, not on their color. And Noel Parrish was one of the reasons why the Tuskegee Airmen made it. I like him. In fact, I was at the convention last year, and I met his wife, Mrs. Noel Parrish. He's like, within the Tuskegee community, he's like, I won't say a god, but you know what I mean. He's quite an important person. Okay, what do we have next? All right, we're going to go on to that is a P-51. This particular aircraft belonged to Lee Archer. Lee Archer was the hot shot of the Tuskegee Airmen. He had 5 kills, which I don't like that term, but that's what they say. When he was in Europe. And nobody had more than him. And he was a strong will. All those guys, they had wills like, you know, they all got along because they were all, and it must have been just amazing to be a part of that unit. Because I met quite a few of them. I met Lee. I met Roscoe Brown, who, did anybody see the Red Tails? Okay. If you remember, there was a maneuver. Well, first of all, let me tell you that B.O. Davis told his guys that he wanted them to guard the bombers. Do not leave the bombers for any reason. And up until recently, the story is they never lost a bomber. Now there's all this hoo-ha-ha going on. I just hoo-hoo it. You know, so what if they lost a couple? I mean, they saved 200, that's pretty good. But Roscoe Brown, was attacked by a Messerschmitt, which is a German jet. And the P-51s are good, but they couldn't outrun the Messerschmitts. So what he did, he got this idea. The thing was behind him, and he did a 180. And he actually did that. He told the whole story last year, that that particular part of the movie is true. And he smiles like a little chipmunk every time he tells that story. It's amazing. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. There is B.O. Davis in his prime as the commander of the fighter pilots. He was staunch. He could smile with you, and he could cuss you out if you didn't do what he told you to do. Next slide. This is my buddy. Colonel McGee, I belong to the chapter that bears his name. Colonel McGee is 93, 94 now. And he has 409 combat missions to his name. He's been in 4 wars. He goes around and he speaks. And he speaks. I mean, there's no loose wires up here. And he's cute as a button. And I'm just so proud of him. Because he's one of the few that are left from the Fighting 99th. Okay, next slide. My father was a bomber pilot. Did any of you know that the Tuskegee Airmen had bomber pilots? No, you didn't, because their story was never told. There were 4 squadrons. They were bumped around from airfield to airfield, putting up with all these attitudes from the commanders. Who wanted them to fail. So finally, the 4 squadrons were placed in Indiana, Seymour, Indiana, a place called Freeman Field. You can see my dad's crew now. I love this picture. He looks happy, doesn't he? I knew Frank Hector. They called him Fuzzy. I never met the rest of them, or I could have, and just don't remember. But my dad was a very happy pilot. What happened is when they were transferred to Freeman Field, they were all under one commander, a guy named Colonel Selway. Colonel Selway was steeped in Jim Crow. Do you know what Jim Crow is, most of you? Jim Crow was the after effect of the Emancipation Proclamation and a way to keep black people in their place. So when they came there, Selway had a officers club made just for them, just for the black pilots. And some of these pilots had seen action. I mean, they came back. There were some of the 332nd there, and they would not let them go into the White Officers Club. So, let's see where I'm at. Okay, next slide. This man here, he has such a special place in my heart. Bill Terry was stationed at Freeman Field. And I'll let my friend John speak for him. John Rice, everybody. Professor John
Thank you. These are the words of Lieutenant Roger Bill Terry, who was present at what is referred to as the Freeman Field Mutiny. These are his words. The War Department decided that we were going to go overseas. Finally, MacArthur, he asked for the best trained B-25 squadron in the country, and they said it was the 477th, but they're colored, and most of the generals and the commanders of the U.S. Air Force over there, they said they didn't want the colored group coming because they would disrupt the harmony of the forces. But MacArthur said, quote, "To hell with what you like and what you want. I want the best trained one, and we will take the 477th. End of quote. So they decided that we would go to Freeman Field, Indiana on March 15th, 1945. And there we would have the whole group together and we could make plans, etc. So we sent a cadre, about 8 or 9 officers and 20 enlisted men. They went up, looked it over, and said what could be used, this, that, and the other. But when they came back, they reported to us, and when I say us, I say we were very much aware of it. We're going to go overseas to fight. We're going to die. Okay. But we're going to find out whether or not we are full-fledged officers and whether or not we are full-fledged Americans. And so he set this up so that he got Officers Club number 2, that is for you guys, and Officer Club number 1 for the white guys. And we found out we could go to Officers Club number 2, but we couldn't go to the PX. We couldn't go to the Officers Club. We couldn't go to the bowling alley, and we could not go to the theater.
And there lies the beginning of the mutiny. How they decided to handle this is there were 63 trainees. No, they weren't trainees. These are full-fledged lieutenants and what have you. That they decided to do a walk-in. So they went 3 by 3. And every time 3 of them would go, they get arrested and sent to their barracks. So I think his, Lieutenant Terry's group was one of the last to go. So he was something else. He had a sense of humor. He was just bigger than life. So he walks in. And the guy who was the officer of the day put his hand on his arm, and Bill told him, get your hand off of me. So the officer of the day went back to Selway and said that he had jostled him. And in times of war, this is a court-martial, and he could even be executed for that. We need to hear some more Bill Terry.
These are, again, Lieutenant Bill Terry's words. So we set up a table to make sure that all the guys that went to the officers' club were in good uniform, their fingernails were clean, they hadn't been drinking, all this stuff. So here we are, and we sent 3 people at a time to go down and get arrested, come back. So they went down, got arrested, and I think I was a 62nd guy or something like that. I went down there and the guy said, well, you can't come in. And I said, well, why not? And he said, oh, you trainees. And I said, how do you know we're trainees? And he said, well, to be frank, no niggers can come in here. So I had a little bit of reluctance. I went over to him, I walked by and went in, and there was a major in there. He took my name and all my credentials and sent me back under arrest. The next day we sent some guys down there and they closed it before they got there. I'll never forget that guy's statement.
Neither will I. Neither will I. So Selway takes a different slant on it now. He writes a regulation, it's 85-2, which basically says that the black officers cannot frequent any place that the white officers do. And he wanted everybody to sign it. 101 of them didn't. Next slide. So what happened to those 101? They brought in empty C-47s, big, huge things. And about 6 or 7 of those planes deposited them in a POW camp in Kentucky, where there were POWs, there were Germans, I think there were some Japanese there, who were they could walk around and do anything they want, and they were making fun of them. They had machine guns, they had dogs, and this is the time that one of the guys had a mother who worked at the White House. So he had his cousin go to the White House to tell his mother, to tell Eleanor what was going on. And would you believe the day that that happened, Roosevelt died. But all was not lost. Truman came in. He found out what was going on. 3 days later, they were out. And it's really funny. The Air Corps did something that nobody was able to do, is put 2 fully registered and armed squadrons out of work. I mean, these guys were trained to do the best they can. And consequently, after that, D-Day happened. Then you got Hiroshima and all that. So the B-25 pilots never saw action. It's a travesty in one way. For me, I still have my dad. He became very involved in the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporation. He was the treasurer for 20 years. And he started quite a few chapters all over the country. There are 53 chapters. These guys are like best buddies, and they didn't want to lose track of each other. So that's what started the whole Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated. The next thing that happened that is noteworthy is President Bush. Oh, that's fine. Oh, I forgot about, how could I forget about this? No, this is right, this is right. President Bush actually gave Bill Clinton, Bill Terry, his pardon. It took 50 years. The guy wanted to be a lawyer. He did nothing. It was unjust. Every time I think of it, it just tears me up. When I first, he was, in 1997, I was privileged enough to go to Freeman Field and hear the story. And Bill Terry was there with his pardon. He also was the president of the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated. And in Seymour, when they were there, the women couldn't try dresses on. They wouldn't do their laundry there. They wouldn't let them try hats on. So the mayor declared that August 16th would be Tuskegee Airmen Day in Seymour, Indiana. Now, just to tell you, that is what sparked my fervor, because I didn't know that. And for those of you that don't know, I have stage 4 cancer. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this, but I'm going to do it. I want people to know what my dad did and what Bill Terry did. I think the next slide will be fine. My dad passed away in 2003, so he was not able to receive his medal, but I've got it. He worked so hard to keep this organization going. And for President Bush to give them an award like this was monumental. If you ever get a chance to go online, and I don't know exactly what the date was, it's April 2007, and look at the hoopla. You'll see Roscoe Brown, you'll see, yeah, Bill Terry was there. Bill Terry didn't pass away until 2009. And Lee Archer, the hotshot, they're all there. And even though I couldn't go, it was great seeing them all. And I think that kind of concludes my part as a Tuskegee Airman experience, the Black Eagles. So I'll take questions. Yes.
So what was the disposition of the mutineers? Were they dishonorably discharged?
There was only, okay, there were 3 that were court-martialed.
Right.
Bill Terry was the only one who actually was court-martialed. In other words, he can't, he can't vote. They fined him $150. They gave him the $150 back without interest. As far as their mindset, there was 164 mutineers that they just wanted to make a point. They didn't do anything worthy of what they did, what they were given. It's like Rosa Parks times 163. Rosa didn't want any problems either, just wanted to make a point. And that's another thing, Rosa has all this press. Because back then, the only people who would cover something like that would be the black newspapers. So obviously, certain people would not know about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I still wanted to know, all right, they interned these guys in Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
but then they released them, what, at the end of the war, or?
No, it was 3 days.
3 days?
3 days after Truman was elected. Yeah, he was a fair man. He, even though he did not desegregate the armed forces until 1948, it took that long to get all the ducks in a row. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, anybody else? Rebecca.
Did they go back to Indiana after they were let out of the thing in Kentucky?
I don't know that.
Or they went back into action, or?
Oh, yes, they did.
They did.
They did. They went back to Freeman Field, and because of D-Day, Commander Davis came over, and he was made the commander of everybody. Does that answer your question?
Fine.
Yes.
Dianne Marie, in 1964, when the Civil Rights Act came out to play, did any one of them think about filing a discrimination complaint?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. They had other things on their mind by that time. You know.
Would it have been taken seriously, you know, that early on in the civil rights movement?
Yeah, plus the fact nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
We're talking, what, 30 years later?
So nobody knew about it.
Nope.
Yeah, to the public at all.
Nope. Yes, my dear.
I'm just curious what the people who did these stupid things, what they said, what they have said, or what they say now, what their consciousness.
Oh, you mean like Officer Selway, Commander
Yeah,
Selway?
many of the people
He was,
that have been engaged
he
in
was,
behavior.
he got his due.
So how? How so?
I think they busted him.
But is there also like a realization instead of just a punishment, you know, in terms of can people like speak up that they realize like, that they have raised their consciousness about this?
Nope.
Because that's actually where we want to go, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. They, Selway and his buddy Hunter there.
So, because there are still these folks around who
Oh,
have
yeah.
taken that position, so.
There's
what
still,
do
yeah,
we
there's still
want
Jim
to do?
Crowers around. Oop. That answer your question?
Could I say something about that?
Yes.
I don't think everybody realizes it, but discrimination was legal.
Yeah.
It wasn't illegal. They
No,
had
I
done
know, but
anything
it's
wrong
still wrong.
legally.
Still
No, it was fine to discriminate against
But
black
don't
people.
people, I mean, yeah, well, you know what I'm saying, right?
We just hope by this time that there has been some remuneration made to these guys
Like an apology.
and like some kind of apology. That is, yeah,
But that's-
But that's, I know, it
That's
doesn't do it for me
fundamental.
either. I understand, but it is,
and I would be pushing for that.
I know you would. Yes.
I was in the Air Force in '65,
Mhm.
and in basic training, half my squad were black people.
Good for you.
And one of the girls that came to Otis with me was from, I believe she was from Alabama.
Mm.
And I brought her home to my house. And
Did you live on the Cape?
no, I lived in Lakeville,
Oh, okay.
which is the next town
Yes.
over. And I brought her home, and we went to church that Sunday. And she says to me, "Where do I sit?" And I said, right in the
Oh.
same pew as I
Ugh.
do. Right in the same pew as I do. And she could not get over that nobody looked at her and did not say a word or whisper, you know.
What a
And
blessing.
She said to me afterwards, she said, "I would love to take you home, Mary, but I don't dare to." And she was from the deep south.
Yeah.
But
And that's in
she was so-
'64, you said?
That's 65.
65? Yeah.
65. And she
Still
was-
happening, folks.
Yeah, and she was so proud that I brought her home and took her to a church that accepted her just for her.
Little things like that work.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we do it one by one. Like, that's why I do what I do. I'm hoping that you'll remember this story and pass it on to your kids or your cousins, or whatever you have. My cousin. That's why I do what I do. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
But your father was a B-25 pilot?
Yes, he was.
What sort of training did he receive before flying B-25s? Do you know?
Well, I think I forgot to mention there were two types of equipment at Tuskegee: the single engine and the twin engine. And never the twain shall meet. So he was totally schooled on the B-25. He had nothing to do with the fighters, which he wanted to be a fighter pilot. Yes.
Has any space been set aside in the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. for the Tuskegee Airmen?
I'm not sure about that.
There needs to be.
Well, there damn well should be.
That's probably my next step. Find out, what now?
Yep.
What, there, like I said, there's not many left.
Doesn't matter.
And we who are the legacy,
Does Obama do like has a special position?
I know there are special places that the Tuskegee Airmen do have. They are acknowledged. I'm just not sure about Washington right now. Bud?
There is one, and it's off of Route 95. You go down there, it's either North Carolina or South Carolina, there's a 8th Air Force Museum.
Oh yeah, you sent me those pictures.
You go by that,
Mhm.
the next state, there's a sign for the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial.
Yes.
And it's a small grass field that the Army took over and set up that training regiment, and then in the war, they gave it back to the city.
Hmm.
So there is something. And
Yeah,
they're
but it's
hoping
not
that-
in Washington.
No, President Obama recognized the Tuskegee Airmen. He has.
Well, that's good. What has he done about it?
In a few ceremonies, he's
Mhm.
given
They have a
them
couple
some kind
of
of recognition.
statues.
And he's had them sit at his inaugural.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw that. But it's still, that's at the moment. I sort of want more than at the moment. I want down the road. Yes, Rebecca?
I just had to say something. This lady was talking about having brought the girl to her church. I've been in the Deep South performing, and I was never more nicely treated than the African Americans that I would visit with, have dinner with, have in my audience. I mean, than I ever was treated by my own race anywhere on the planet. It was instant
Well,
family. And
what
it was-
year?
Oh, it was in the early 80s
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
90s.
see.
And I must say that it's been that way, that the reverse has not been true.
Yeah. That's because of who you are, dear.
Well, whatever. I am who you are,
Yeah.
we all are.
Mhm.
And it's, crikey, it's 2013. You don't get with the program,
Oh,
it's
my,
like
that
so hard
just
to-
dawned on me. Yeah.
It's so hard for me to understand humans these days. Having to come across-
They're not getting any better
They're
either.
having been carried across the bloody threshold and been enlightened, like open your eyes and read something.
Yeah,
Talk to somebody.
yeah. Does anybody else have a comment? Yes.
Yeah, I thank you for telling this story about Tuskegee, because for many years I've associated Tuskegee with the syphilis study, which many people may be aware of.
That's another
The
thing.
federal government,
Exactly.
conducted another experiment
Mhm.
on Black Americans. in which they-
And that's sad.
For many years in the name of science.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you. I now I have in my mind the Tuskegee
Yes.
Airmen is the Tuskegee syphilis study.
That makes me very happy. Yeah, I don't usually mention that.
Oh,
But if somebody brings it up, now you know. They used black men to test syphilis at Tuskegee.
yeah, retarded children.
Mhm. Yeah. But that's another story. That's another story. Any other questions? Yes.
I was just gonna say to the point of what the two ladies were saying, in 1980-ish, you would be okay, but in 1960,
Mm-hmm.
you would not be mobbed by black people, but you would be killed by racist white people.
That's right.
That's
Ain't that the
You're
truth?
right.
That's the difference.
That's why I just can't understand it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it,
Um,
Not the way I was brought up, for damn sure.
I can understand it, but I don't condone it. And I thank God for that. Because I could be very bitter, as a lot of us could. I mean, there's been prejudices other than to black people that are just as bad, if not worse.
I'd like to mention that for anybody that's interested in it, there's a lot of good human interest stories, like in this particular book here, talking about, with stories about some of the black men that went into the military there, Tuskegee, and you can't begin to believe how hard it was for them to get where they got, each individual, what they went through, the courage they needed, and the fortitude, and the self-confidence they had. These were not just anybody that did this. These were people that really believed in themselves, first of all, and they were really confident that they wanted to do what they were about doing. And many of them got washed out, even with all this confidence. So you have to, if you're interested in seeing what it is that some people are able to get past, to deal with, and to do something, that in some way can even be said to be backfiring on them while they're doing it. This is a fantastic story.
What's the name of that one again?
A lot of interviews of these people, like he was reading Bill Terry's statements. It's fantastic.
What's the name of that one?
This is the Airmen, Freedom Flyers.
Freedom, that is an awesome book. It tells all about the mutiny. And I haven't found a book other than there is a book that Colonel Warren wrote after they declassified all the telephone conversations between Selway the jerk and Hunter the jerk. And he was able to go to the Pentagon and get all the stuff that they were really doing. And his book is very good as well. How am I doing?
Good. I have a question for you.
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier that your father took you to a lot of conventions
Mhm.
and things, and you didn't necessarily know who that some of the men were Tuskegee Airmen. Why did you think your father didn't? I mean, was it just the guys? And I mean, why did you not know? How did you
Well,
know?
I was a musician most of my life. My father did not talk. He left the Air Corps right after, I think he left in 45, 46, because that was the end of the bomber pilot. Would you believe he tried to go, with all the training he had, he tried to become a pilot for United? No go. No go. Then he took advantage of the GI Bill. He got an accounting degree, went all up and down State Street. I'm from Chicago, by the way. No go. He actually was able to gather some friends of his that started a savings and loan. And in 1968, my father was the first black bank president since the 20s. I know those things. There's a lot of things I don't know because he really was. He's like, did not talk. But his friends did. Thank God. Yes.
Well, Dianne Marie, I think I told you a long time ago that in the mid-70s, I was one of the first women, an African-American woman, air traffic control specialist. So it was the Federal Aviation Administration. And I know what discrimination is about.
She knows.
Woman, and the first African-American, one of the first, get into air traffic control, when that was all white males. And we went in.
When I think of that,
And that training in Oklahoma City, that academy, was really tough.
I can
Because
imagine.
I had one instructor, when you do, after you complete what they ask you to do, part of the exams, and they have to sign off. And one signed off, his initial says KKK.
Oh my God.
yeah, she's been through it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
We're doing good.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I can be here as long as you can. Any other feedback?
If there are no more questions, we can meet in the back and people can look at your
Oh, yeah.
books and your memorabilia.
Okay, well, I really, truly thank you. Thank you. thank Libby. Thank you, Libby. And the Friends of the Middleborough Library. And Professor Rice. And my Goomba over there, Victor. Uh-oh.
The doctor wanted them to phone for him. After the war, the Air Force had they had an Air Force contest, demonstration contest. It was supposed to be for all the units to fly and get merit ratings on their capacities. And some of the Tuskegee air pilots, airmen, manned a bomber, and they participated in it. And they scored, they won the team, and they came in second on individual. And there was a, next to the date, 1948, this little asterisk, and it's down below, it says unknown. They would not give them credit. And that lasted for years, decades.
Yeah.
I think
Those guys knew what they were
96 or
doing.
something like that when they first entered in the truth on that.
One other thing before I leave. There's a DVD called In Their Own Words. That is one of the most magnificent DVDs I've ever seen as far as what they went through. And these are with the guys, you know, the guys. Lee Archer's on there, and Roscoe Smith, and Roscoe Brown, and Colonel McGee's in there. If you really want to see what they went through and see their fervor, you know, and they all felt that they all were alike, because if they weren't, they kill each other. They all had the same focus. They all wanted to be flyers, and they wanted to be good.
Pioneers, Diane.
Yeah, they were.
Genuine pioneers.
Well, that will conclude my part. If you'd like to see, I have some cards over there. We have some handouts that have some reading material that I recommend. And I, once again, thank you all.
Thank you.